Well, welcome back to B2B Online. This is our second day of the event. We're so glad that you've been able to join us. I'm here this morning with Nitin Mathur from TE Connectivity. We're going to be talking about understanding the role that the customer experience plays in the successful digital transition. Nitin, thank you so much for being with us today. Before we get started, do you mind just telling the audience a little bit about yourself and your role at TE?
Thank you for having me again, Olga. My name is Nitin Mathur, and I lead marketing for our industrial solutions segment at TE. Prior to this, I was the chief digital officer for the company.
Excellent, and likewise, always great to chat with you. So as I mentioned, we're talking about the role that CX plays in digital transformations, digital transitions. Over the past year, we've seen that this gradual move to digital is not really an option anymore. We have to really accelerate things, and the things that were basic capabilities before are now table stakes. And the most foundational part of that, of course, is the customer experience. So Nitin, as you consider rolling out new strategies, new platforms, what kind of emphasis do you place on the customer experience and its optimization?
Yeah, you're right, Olga. Customers' expectations are increasingly driven by their personal experiences. And B2B customers are raising the bar on what they expect from manufacturers and suppliers as well. In fact, it's predicted by 2025, more than 50% of the industrial transactions will be digitally influenced. And it's the full omni-channel journey, right? How customers research, how they evaluate, how they shortlist suppliers, order, reorder, and actually manage their entire relationships with suppliers. Prior to rolling out new strategies or platforms, we focus a lot on customer insights and behavior. It's important to have a customer back approach. What are the problems we are trying to solve for the customers? How will the solution and the platform we are planning to roll out make it easy for customers to do business with us? What are the underlying business process changes we need to make? And how do we, most importantly, align the internal teams? What type of and what level of change management is required? I think all of these are important considerations.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, developing a data-backed end-to-end customer journey view is important. We develop front-end experience with customer inputs. We want to try and test the prototypes with real customers before actually scaling it across the organization. That's what we've done whenever we've rolled out large programs like global commerce or any other customer-facing capability.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, lastly, besides the customer experience imperatives, it's also critical to anticipate how the rollout will impact your key metrics, right? Revenue, cost to serve, time to market, and the impact on the broader ecosystem, including partners and suppliers.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you see, digital sales channels impacting the customer experience?
Maximizing digital sales channel is a win-win opportunity. I mean, this is largely what customers want and prefer because it's an experience which is optimized around them, right? Their schedule, their preferences, and ultimately it's the most efficient way to serve customers. And in our case, it's about providing customers choice, right? Helping them make their decisions easy and also reduce the friction in the path to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
I would say what is interesting about digital sales is, besides the obvious benefits of improving the customer experience, digital sales creates internal efficiencies, right? It could be around improving your product data and merchandising capability. It could be around pricing, logistics, supply chain. Let me share an example at TE Connectivity, right? My previous role as chief digital officer for the company, when a few years back when we were rolling out global commerce, we realized that in addition to designing the right end-to-end e-commerce experience, we had to work a lot on our online merchandising and product information. And there was a huge focus on enriching our product data, right? We have, as you know, a very deep and broad portfolio. So we prioritize certain GPLs and really started working backwards to make sure that for highly engineered products, which we have, engineers who are our customers have all the right information on their tips,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's downloadable data sheets, 3D drawing, customer view models, specifications, compliance information. And this started a process for us where we had to align and look at the data journey, the digital readiness of data across the entire spectrum, right from engineering processes to our NPI launch processes, and really align our engineering, product management, pricing, channel, marketing teams. And So what started as a program to grow e-commerce revenues, or provide choice to customers and influence our digital sales, ultimately ended up transforming a pretty significant part of how we put our products in front of our customers, right? And so that's an example of, as you embark on digital sales channels and to improve it actually forces you to look at a lot of other processes and brings in efficiency in those processes. So today, we have more than 400,000 parts online on our website with a very robust data set, and over 60,000 parts which are available to on e-commerce, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so as you think about this, as a result of this exercise, we ended up significantly improving customer experience, increased our organic traffic, reduced our customer service queries, and ended up also improving our digital influence sales.
You mentioned, the importance of data, the importance of customer insights. Can you talk a little bit about, how you gauge how customers are responding? And maybe the second part of that question is, has there been a case where you've needed to pivot?
Yeah, I think as I talk about digital sales and capabilities, another thing which we see is that this channel creates incredible amount of data, right? Not just the usual sort of demographic, firmographic, and purchase data, but in our case, we start to look at patterns on what our customers are building, what kind of applications are they building, and then it sort of opens up the ability to partner with them more broadly, because we can bring a broad range of products to them.
Mm-hmm.
I would say on the customer experience side, today we have a variety of tools available for gauging customer response, right? We use a combination of tools from always on digital analytics to online exit surveys, analyzing multi-channel customer interactions on chat, calls, emails. We also do periodic NPS and dissatisfaction survey. And as far as pivoting is concerned, I would say there are two types of changes we would look at. One is, how does this customer feedback help us optimize our online customer experience? And that happens more frequently, I would say, right? Mm-hmm. This could be changes you make more on the front end flow of how customers are interacting with you. And the pace of change and sort of willingness to pivot really depends upon what's really the value at stake, and what's the customer feedback we're getting, and what are the implications on cost to serve. So there are many examples where we pivoted, right? One interesting example which comes to my mind is how we had to, given the customer feedback, we brought our samples and commerce program together so that we create a seamless experience. Because our customers who were ordering samples, they were hitting a certain limit on how many parts can they really order on samples. And they wanted a choice to be able to then buy seamlessly from our commerce offering. And sort of this is an example of bringing the two together, basis some of the customer feedback we get, and ultimately sort of improving the customer experience. Mm-hmm. Lastly, I would say, if you look at last 1.5 years or so, it's all been about pivoting internally as well as externally to serve our customers, right? How do we support our customer-facing teams to go virtual? How do we support our customer interactions remotely? How do we accelerate digital self-service and finding new ways to market and engage our customers via digital marketing? There's been a lot of change and pivot around those areas too.
Mm-hmm. And we've been talking a lot about the customer-facing side of things. I want to shift gears a little bit, and you kind of hinted at that just now, but I want to talk about maybe some strategies or tactics that you've put in place to ensure that your internal teams have a really meaningful understanding of how important CX optimization is.
Yeah, this is a lot about continuous discovery and listening, right? As well as making sure that we have empowered cross-functional teams who are driven to make those improvement in experiences and are able to make the decisions which are required to move fast. And I would say customer journey analytics, like I mentioned, plays a critical role in understanding what are those meaningful sort of data points which lead to better conversion. And I think what is also important is the analytics piece needs to work across both digital first as well as your hybrid, which I call the digital plus human customer experiences. So the key here is we focus a lot on making such analytics and VOC data widely available in the organization, right? Mm-hmm. With a special focus on teams which are directly responsible for designing the customer experience. And then we also encourage, experimentation and testing to see what customers are responding to, as well as what isn't working well, right? there's no way to be 100% sure on what is going to work, but if you have a data backed view and you make these important small bets, and consider that for every move forward you have to test with customers before you scale it further, that really helps. And that's sort of the culture we're trying to create within TE.
Mhm. Let me ask you a little bit about solution partners. I'd love to get your take on how these third-party partnerships ultimately impact the customer experience.
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, our customers are primarily engineers, and when we think about their journey, they spend a lot of time searching and finding parts for the applications they're building across the web, right? Their customer journey is varied, it's complex, and sometimes actually quite unpredictable. And I think it's very important to acknowledge that no single company can claim to be the center of the universe, right? As far as being the best of breed in the customer journey is concerned. And this is where I would say developing a holistic ecosystem view around customer journey and experience is important. For example, in many cases, our engineers may be beginning their journey while they're developing, say, a board application with a semiconductor company, and then move to interconnect components. And as they do that, they may go to data aggregators, they may go to industry vertical search engines. This is where I think the third-party partnerships become critical. There are many dimensions of third-party. I would say one is sort of the solution provider who partner with you to continuously improve your customer journey. Then there are partnerships which are more around, I would say, distribution and give you scale, right? We are fortunate to have deeper partnerships with our distributors who play a very critical part in enhancing our customer experience, right? And we make a lot of effort to make sure that our distributors have most up-to-date information about our products, the latest collaterals, so that as they are going to market, they're able to showcase TE products and help us differentiate in the marketplace. We also have, I would say, product data and syndication partnerships where with a variety of players who are critical to the engineering community. So that's sort of one view of partnerships. I would say one of the emerging areas and interesting areas for us to keep an eye on is really as you think about how things are getting designed, more and more design today is digital, right? Done on electronic design tools. And so how do we make our product information seamlessly available in those endemic environments is very critical for us. And I think that's an area we want to look at closely so that we are part of the design cycle of the engineers easily. And then I would say lastly, when we think about partnerships across the customer journey, partnerships around sort of more on the marketing side, how do we segment the market? How do we really understand the customer dynamics? How do we target them better using third-party data, the likes of DNB, using DMP solutions to be able to do targeting, and even contact enrichment through different tools becomes really, really important. And so for us, like I said, we try and create a holistic ecosystem view of that customer journey, and then look at who are the best of breed partners we want to work with to enhance ultimately the customer experience.
Absolutely. And we have just a couple of minutes here, and I want to close out with one last question. What do you think the future holds for customer experience optimization? What does your crystal ball say?
I wish I had a crystal ball. But I would say that I see lots of opportunities and some challenges for customer experience optimization in the future. And one of the things which is critical for companies to look at is, as you think about a post-pandemic world, B2B buyers have moved overwhelmingly to embrace omni-channel, right? So given the choice of in-person, remote, e-commerce channels, customers are saying we want them all. And even as some of the in-person engagement emerges back as an option, buyers made it clear that they have a preference for a cross-channel mix, right? For choosing when they want in-person, remote, digital self-service interactions. And I think as you think about this omni-channel go-to-market, optimizing customer experience for this new reality is the biggest opportunity, as well as the challenge in driving B2B sales. I would say this require companies to understand the customer preferences even more deeply, right? Segment the customers, consider route to customers, selling motions. I continue to believe that we will see a strong bias for developing digital first experiences, leading to more automation, leveraging artificial intelligence to create more adaptive and personalized experiences. And ultimately, Olga, I believe this will be a race and customers will be ahead of us and companies will play some amount of catch up. And lastly, I would say it's important to acknowledge that we'll never be done with customer experience optimization, and it'll be a continuous improvement journey.
Absolutely. We'll go ahead and wrap things up on that note. Nitin, thank you again for being with us. I really appreciate it. You've actually teed us up for our next session, which is on omni-channel strategy. So we'll be talking about that shortly. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me, Olga.